Meet the men getting rich selling secret Space War stories.
They really got their launch pad on Gaia TV, 600,000 paid subscribers. Another guy, Andrew Basiago, said that he served in the secret space program alongside Barack Obama.
Okay. That's where he was that whole time. Another one says his body is a loner.
Your age regressed back into a body of the original 16-year-old that you were before you left.
And then it turns dark.
But was also a slave to a sort of gray reptilian group.
So who are these guys? Let's find out. Welcome to the Good Trouble Show. I'm Matt Ford. Our guest tonight is documentary filmmaker Darcy Weir. For 2 decades, he has been making films inside the UFO world. His new one takes a hard look at the people who say they fought in a, get this, secret space program, and the network that turned their stories into a business. Now, a note before we roll the trailer. We recorded this conversation with Darcy Weir a couple of months ago. And since then, one of Gaia TV's hosts, David Wilcock, died on April 20th at 53. His family has pointed to a long struggle with depression. When Darcy references him in the present tense in this interview, that is why. Here is the trailer for Dark Alliance: The Next Generation.
You're dealing with something that actually does exist. There is secrecy to the space program, and I believe some of that secrecy is related to UFOs.
My first SSP conference that I attended was in 2014.
I was in the Air Force for 12 years. During that 12-year period, I was attached to JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command. Stargate, the movie, is early 90s. The invasion of Iraq is 2003.
Saddam Hussein and his sons must leave Iraq within 48 hours.
We cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
I did observe some individuals who I suspected to be military intel collectors who were there to observe and hear what was being discussed, because this was an SSP conference of really legitimate researchers.
For this energy of the future evolution of the human species.
Basically, I was trained from my adolescence up to my teenage years, the age of 17, as a super soldier in Project Moonshadow, which again was a different kind of program.
Did you ever go to space?
Did I ever go to space?
Yes.
In my physical body?
Yes.
We're talking way long ago when he first came out, when he was claiming that a great solar flash would hit Earth in 2022. Still waiting for that.
Because there's shit's going down and you don't want to be here, but we're going to take you aboard our spaceship to safety. Like, that was actually the early Ashtar Command message.
We're all here. We're at a secret space conference.
But this is a step between, being live on Earth and being dead back with your group, or your soul family. They basically can step in the middle of that and capture consciousness and memories.
When I was privately owned, and there was a time I witnessed Satanism.
Bill's claims that the U.S. Navy out of Naval Air Station San Diego actually had a covert espionage program to learn about what the Nazis were doing.
He's getting this slow revealing JPEG that's coming down ever so slowly, but he's seeing a spacecraft that doesn't look like anything we ever built.
My planet, your planet, our planet. Thank you, Galactic Federation of Worlds, showing up.
Please welcome to the show Darcy Weir. Darcy, welcome back. How have you been? How's the baby? And how is your lovely wife doing?
It's been good. I'm a little tired. Won't lie to you. I've got the bags just growing under my eyes daily, but life is good. I'm happy to see his little smile every day, and wife is good. just working away on these stories I'm presenting.
Awesome, awesome. Well, so we're here to talk about this amazing documentary. Now, before we get into it, you've been making documentaries in the UFO space for what, 20 years now? How does a person end up doing that for a living?
Well, it wasn't what I started off doing as a living. I was working in IT support for a number of years. I worked for corporations like Microsoft, Game Studio. I worked for Best Buy head office in Canada, and I was like a Mac system admin and a Windows guy. But I created my very first conspiracy documentary. I will say it was a blatant conspiracy documentary called The Underground in 2012, and it took 3 to 4 years to make it. I published it on YouTube. It blew up. It got like 4 million hits back in the day. And I realized people are into this stuff. And I've been slowly building more professional presentations that do deep dives and prevent, as many facts as possible in the stories that I present over the years. So now it's my full-time thing.
I absolutely love that. It's I truly think it's a gift when you get to make a living at what you truly love to do. I mean, not many people get that opportunity in life, and I think that is just fantastic. So you have a new film out. We watched the trailer at the very beginning of the show, and I watched the film, absolutely love it. It's called Dark Alliance: The Next Generation. So my question is, do you actually believe that there is a secret space program, or that there probably is? And tell us just kind of in a nutshell what the film is about.
Yeah, so I've touched on my beliefs of there being secret space activity, secret UFO activity, and NASA's endeavors alongside military agencies, possibly intelligence agencies, throughout the decades. So I think there has to be some kind of secret space activity going on. With all of that said, in this documentary series that I've been presenting for the past couple years called Dark Alliance, I'm saying that what these people are explaining is true, is most likely a LARP, live action role playing, or purely entertainment, because there's no facts, there's no proof to what these people say. It's just spectacle and sensationalism run rampant.
Now, before we get into the details about the film, let's set up some of the characters. You spend most of your time with two people, this gentleman by the name of Tony Rodriguez and Chris O'Connor. Who are these guys?
So these guys have been surrounded by the secret space program. I call it in the series the New Age secret space program crew, which includes Corey Goode, David Wilcock, Michael Sala, Emery Smith, all of these guys. They really got their launch pad on Gaia TV, which, in my opinion, promoting this type of stuff, this as fact or, real, is kind of like spreading delusion en masse, because they have a very large subscribership. But yeah, these people, Tony Rodriguez and Chris O'Connor, they got their start, almost a decade ago. And Tony Rodriguez, we have pictures of him basically going to conferences where Michael Sala and the first sort of famous secret space program astronaut guy, Corey Goode, had his debut in 2015 at a conference in Mount Shasta. So, yeah.
And let me jump in here. for people that have no idea what Gaia TV is, what is Gaia? What's its history? And how long has it been around? And sort of what is Gaia's audience?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I kind of addressed that when we made our first version, like our first presentation in this docu-series called Dark Alliance, which is free on Tubi TV if people want to go check that out. It's a two-parter, and we interview the former head of production at Gaia TV, Jay Weidner. Jay Weidner
is in this as well.
He is briefly in this too, because he gives a bit of context surrounding the story of, character analysis of like Tony Rodriguez and other people, because he was there when they were coming in to Gaia TV studios and launching their story through that launch pad. But he explains the company as basically, when he was there, a startup that was basically a spirituality and, let's say, conspiracy theory Netflix. Because they specialize in alternative health. They specialize in sort of spirituality stuff, alternative, alternate to religion, let's say. And then they have the alternate history, alternate, reality sort of presentation stuff with some of the conspiracy theory offerings that they have. And that's where the New Age secret space program really took off.
And is this a pretty big outfit? Like, what would you estimate their viewership to be? Or maybe the question is, what has been their height of their sort of subscribership?
Yeah, so they have per year anywhere between 600 to 500,000 subscribers.
Okay.
And then they have all of their hosts have their own sort of TikTok, YouTube channels. Jimmy Church and Christina Gomez and all these folks that have shows on there kind of also murmur with the same folks that they platform. And at one point, you could see in the documentaries, Jimmy Church was at all these conferences introducing these people as the real deal. Here comes David Wilcock with the most amazing stories. You're going to believe everything because this guy is the real deal, So
sure,
that's pretty much. They've got a sphere of influence, and it includes their own network, but then all the hosts that they use and their platforms.
Okay, got it. All right, so let's get back to the film. There's sort of a kingmaker, this other figure in the film who I think is more interesting than the claimants themselves, this Dr. Michael Sala. Am I saying that right? Sala?
Yeah.
Okay. And you spoke about him just a few moments ago. Who is this guy?
He's an interesting guy that's added a voice to ufology and to, let's say, the disclosure movement. I don't fault him for having a presence there. And I really think that there is value in expanding to other audiences this discussion. But he's published an amazing amount of books that put a very, very interesting spin on everything that's going on in the discussion. And, things that he's claimed that are absolutely true are the testimony of Corey Goode, which now we know since Corey Goode's legal depositions, he said he made it up and it was just a sort of intellectual property or entertainment IP. He said that, everything that Tony Rodriguez or Chris O'Connor or he kind of platforms these people. And then books come out and he's stated that we've got, alien human bases on Mars where, joint programs are going on, and we're also fighting wars with the Draco reptilians in space.
Okay.
He claims that there's a base in Antarctica where the aliens live right now, and that all the major governments and militaries know about that base, and there's basically he becomes a person to go to when you want to know who the aliens are and what their motives are and what they're doing around our planet. And I think there's a stark contrast between somebody like him that's speaking in the public and somebody like, let's say Ryan Graves, who saw an object, knows that our militaries are interacting with UAP or UFOs, but he would never go as far as to say, who's piloting the craft and yada yada yada. When we get into this territory, it becomes a bit woo,
but not in a good way. More like bullshit woo.
I would say, trust me, bro, woo, because there's no proof. How are you they present it as if it is factual in reality, and I think it's a bit dangerous because it spreads delusion, and it may kind of mentally unseat some people that are trying to figure out this reality or figure out what's going on. We're waiting for the goods, right? From some kind of official release and eventual, documentation and so on and so forth. But think if aliens are here, they're so far ahead of us that, they're not really concerned about the things that these people speak about as if it's gospel.
Before we get back to our interview with Darcy, real quick, if you're not a subscriber to our show, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube, ring the bell, leave a comment, give us a thumbs up. All of that helps YouTube. It tells YouTube, hey, let's recommend the Good Trouble Show to other people. Also, find us on all the major podcast platforms if you like to listen on the go. And last thing, we have no sponsors on this show. Zero, none. So we are kept alive entirely by people like you. So if you want to help pay the bills, join us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/The Good Trouble Show. All of that helps us bring you great guests and great shows like we have today. And also, you can find us on YouTube through the memberships and on Super Thanks. All of that means the world. All right, let's get back to the interview with Darcy. Sure, and when I was watching this thing, at first I was thinking, are these people having some kind of mental illness breakdown or whatever? But the more I watched it, the more I realized this whole thing seems like a grift, like a business. So walk me through how this actually works financially. These are people, they're not just telling stories around a campfire. There's like a real economy behind this thing with conferences and whatnot. Walk us through that.
Yeah, it's very circular, right? And, you may even hear Stephen Cambion, who comes up on a portion of the documentary. Some people may have a reaction to that because he's a very strong personality. But the circular sort of description that he says, which I think is very appropriate, is a circle jerk. So essentially you have one major corporation platforming them. That is probably marketing 101. A lot of companies and advertisers and stuff look for environments like that for, this type of proliferation or marketing cycle. But when you see it happening with these guys that literally are providing I think, delusionary sort of presentations, it's not good long term for our society, our families, our kids. I mean, it's like your brain is just falling out of your head because you're no longer, prescribing to the realities of life to some degree.
Right. So it really is truly a circle jerk. And I mean, yeah, it's the stuff's pretty out there. I mean, think about it this way. If we already have alien bases that we're manning on Mars, I guess, I don't know, maybe that's why Elon Musk has decided to refocus his efforts from Mars to the moon, because we already have stuff there. But like, here's a great example. So there's this device called the Deems device, the Divine Evolution Electromagnetic Microsingularity device. It sounds, I don't know, something maybe from Ghostbusters. Explain to me what this thing is.
Well, apparently it's a rod with a crystal or kind of like a stone shaped in a sort of little pyramid on the end of it. And, it heals people. But this is one of Chris O'Connor's devices he sells on his website. And there's no health facts. There's no, approval through a government agency. There's no papers that have done to review its effectiveness to treat things like cancer or, spiritual
How expensive
alignment.
Is this?
I think it's a few $100s. I'm not quite sure.
Wow.
I've never bought one.
Okay.
But that's the sort of thing. I mean, like, you get into with this side of ufology, you get into sort of the crystal hippie group. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think gems and crystals are pretty to look at, but when you're saying that it's going to heal some kind of major ailment, you should be getting a professional to look at in a hospital setting. I think that's where it gets dangerous.
I would agree. That definitely gets dangerous. I mean, listening to how you describe it, it sounds like something they might have pulled from an Indiana Jones film. It just smells of a grift. So I love how you interview these two folks. What was it actually like sitting in your chair across from these two people who are telling you that they spent 20 years in a classified space program and had their memory wiped? Walk us through what that was like and what's going on through your head while they're telling you this. Because the thing I was really impressed with was you were keeping a straight face during the whole thing. I would have lost it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think they're nice guys. I think that they're used to speaking to people that fully and completely believe everything they're saying. And there is a large group that do believe this stuff, and to each their own, right? But I just wanted to sit through their storytelling and bring that to a broader audience outside of the networks that usually promote their stuff, right? Because look, we live in a world of free speech. We live in a world of public record and the ability to have a conversation about sensational claims. And that's all I'm kind of offering with my expose.
When you're interviewing them, did you ever find yourself almost believing them in any particular moment? Or what's going through your head is like, oh my God, this is just a load of bullshit?
No, I didn't believe any of it.
Of course. Yeah, I certainly understand that. Yeah, it was great. And I love the little kind of like sound effects and cutaways that you do that just add, it really reinforces the story that this is truly some kind of grift. Now, one thing that we hear throughout the film, or what these two people talk about, is this 20 and back claim. It comes up throughout the film. explain to someone what 20 and back means, people that have never heard it. It was the first time I'd ever heard it.
Yeah, so it became famous through Corey Goode, who was the premier secret space astronaut soldier guy that was launched on Gaia TV through a TV show that David Wilcock hosted called Cosmic Disclosure. We cover all that in the first Dark Alliance series that we released. But essentially, you know, you've got this guy that says, I remember being active as an astronaut and soldier in space, fighting Draco reptilians and being a part of a galactic federation of good aliens that, you know, are here to protect Earth with the Sphere Alliance and stuff like that. You know, talking about tales of being on Mars, on the moon, alien bases, yada, yada, yada. But then you say, how can you prove this? Well, here's the thing. The government, the military that's connected to that, has this high technology that allows you to do those missions in space for 20 years active service. And then when you come back to Earth, you've finished your term, your tour of duty, your age regressed back into a body of the original 16-year-old that you were before you left. Sure. And then you can live out your normie life here on the planet.
But you've forgotten about it.
But you've forgotten mostly about it because they've done such a great job of mind wiping you, Men in Black style, right?
Right.
The movie Men in Black. So, you know, it makes somebody like Buzz Aldrin, Ryan Graves, you know, Senator Mark Kelly look like they are nothing. They've done nothing with their lives. They are boring. And these guys are the real deal. They should be elected to office and be the president of the United States.
Of course, or work for Elon Musk. That's it's nuts. Now, one of the things I loved about the very beginning of the film is this kind of stage effect that you have where you make an observation that if your neighbor, like sitting on the other side of the fence, your neighbor said some of these things, you'd be thinking, you know what, my neighbor is effing crazy. But, you know, you put him on the stage, put him on a stage with a crowd and hushed tones, and he's all serious and stuff, and suddenly he's an international hero. So what is happening there?
Yeah, so that's like the falsifiability test, and Richard Dolan speaks to it. And, you know, it's essentially saying, like, if you have no proof, if you have no data to provide to back up your claims, what are you even doing? And, you know, this subject is already tenuous and hard for the normies and mainstreamers to take seriously, right? When you have whole outfits and circle jerks going on that promote all of this stuff very heavily to the community in ufology, let's say, it muddies the waters and it really makes this subject not push forward as easily. You know what I mean? It becomes a trap in which you can, I'd say, more easily debunk. And look, like, I believe experiencers. I've spoken to Travis Walton. I've spoken to, you know, many people that have said they've been abducted. And I believe their stories.
Right. Me too.
But the difference between their stories is that they say, look, I'm not quite sure where these beings are from. I don't know the whole story of what the background is there. So they don't become like these prophets or these like, you know, cult leaders after that. They just say, this extraordinary thing happened to me, and, you know, this is what I can tell you about the event, right? Whereas these people say, I know, you know, these beings are from this galaxy of Andromeda, or I know that these beings are from here and they mean this, and they're part of a galactic federation. The Galactic Federation is straight out of Star Trek, you know, and other popular sci-fi literature. And it was launched softly with the sort of Space Brothers era of ufology in the 1950s. So, you know, it's hard to sort of say if that is for sure a real thing. To me, I'm leaning that we can't say for sure that all these non-human intelligence are in league together, or, you know, that there's even Draco reptilians. You know, you have, what's his name? Eric
Davis? Yeah, right.
Yeah. He was saying at a conference, like a sort of mock congressional hearing that was happening in Washington last year, that there's certain phenotypes, right, that have been recorded. And he specifically says one that may appear kind of reptilian, but does not denote that it's actually reptilian. You know, just like might have been what people believe is a gray, but had some kind of description of a skin type that looked like scales or something like that, right? I believe that. But then you've got people that go forward and say, Draco reptilians are here, like something out of Jupiter Rising, the film with, you know, the Wachowski family made.
Let's talk about Tony Rodriguez specifically. So this is a man who claims he witnessed human sacrifice in space. If I were sitting across from him, you know, part of me would be like, do I have empathy for him? Do I empathize with him? How did you feel about him? Like, what was your sort of personal take on him? Because he actually comes off as a likable guy.
Yeah, I think he's a nice guy, again. But, you know, I don't believe that he was part of this secret space program. And I think the sort of human sacrifice thing, just so you understand his story a bit better, and maybe your audience, people can go and look into it. He has some books too. If people want to read those, they're probably pretty interesting. But essentially what his story has, it kind of encapsulates a lot of the dark and scary things about ufology that people allude to over the years possibly existing, right? So let's take, for example, Jeffrey Epstein, right? And human trafficking. That's a real thing.
Right.
I believe, right? And it's horrible. And there should be justice for the victims, and these people should go to hell if there is one, and they should be caught before then and serve time in some kind of incarceration in jail. What Tony's story does is it pulls that sort of theme, and he says, well, I was a slave in one of these sort of pedophilic Illuminati rings, and I saw human sacrifices happening at that time. So it's like harvesting something that's out there that's very real, that people have been talking about for a long time, and then kind of putting it into your super story. Because after he was part of that, he ended up getting drafted in the secret space program and did kind of like facilities management, you know, in space, but was also a slave to a sort of gray reptilian group that were malevolent up there, and, you know, mind controlled him and raped him and stuff like that. Like really scary stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, that's, for some people, that is the best story that could be told, because it's so out there, it's so on the fringe, and if that's true, then we're living in like the most evil version of the Matrix possible, right?
Sure.
But there's no proof, and that's the problem. Yeah, and and I also like see that a lot of these guys, like even Corey Goode, for example, and we tracked this, you know, when he launched his character, he was talking about all these things that are real, you know. So in his character's story, he was taken to an underground base. Underground bases have been covered pretty well. You know, UAP Gerb has a great channel, and he presents a lot of data and evidence of multiple facilities, probably around just the United States alone. Then Corey Goode was taken off world to, you know, underground bases in space on different planets, the moon, Mars, whatever. Another guy, Andrew Basiago, said that he served in the secret space program alongside Barack Obama.
Okay. That's where he was that whole time.
Andrew Basiago is famous for launching his persona and his story on Gaia TV. You know, and he was also, Jesse Ventura did a really fun, remember he had that reality TV show on, I think it was called True TV, called Conspiracy.
I think so. Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
And Andrew Basiago, you know, got caught in that TV show red-handed, kind of lying. So,
surprise.
Jesse Ventura, you know, did his thing like, you mean to tell me that you've been to Mars and I've been and fought in Nam and seen my friends die face down in the muck and you're fighting on Mars? And he's
alongside
like,
Barack Obama.
Or alongside Barack Obama. And he says, well, where were you raised? Take us to the home where you know, you initially had these programs abduct you and induct you into the secret space program, whatever. So in the show, they go to this house in California, and he's like, yeah, I lived right in that house over there. And Jesse Ventura goes, okay, I'm going to go knock on the door. And he knocks on the door. Excuse me, can you tell me a bit about the history of this house and who's owned it? And this old lady opens and is like, well, my family has, and it's been handed down for like over 100 years or something. And Andrew Basiago is standing behind the film crew, and they're like, when did you say you lived here? And he's like, yeah. So, I mean, it's like, this is how far these people will go, right?
Insane. I want to talk about another guy that you spend a great deal of time with, Chris O'Connor, whose real name, I think you mentioned this earlier, is Chris Fowler. So this guy goes from being the chairman of the Palm Springs Film Alliance, like, you know, he has a true legitimate role, to someone who claims that he spent 60 years on, was it Saturn or Saturn's moons? What was up with this guy?
Well, he was more like I guess a UN sort of peacekeeper / therapist in space, and people that were coming back from their tour of duty on the 20M backs or were abductees and so on. He would do sort of counseling for and help them spiritually and stuff in space. So he worked apparently within the Galactic Federation and would communicate with aliens, and they would sit, you know, kind of in that UN sort of style, big circular table and have diplomatic relations and stuff like that.
Amazing. When I hear you explain all of this, and of course, hearing it in the film, it's like, wow, I can't believe people believe this shit. It's truly crazy. Now, someone in the film challenges one of these super soldiers to a boxing match for $10,000, which really isn't a lot of money if you think about it, especially, I guess, if you're in a secret space program. I would hope that it pays a hell of a lot better than that. And he does this to test whether he has superhuman abilities. And, I mean, look, given that President Trump is apparently trying to turn the White House lawn into a big fight venue for MMA, I don't know, maybe there's an opportunity here for them to do this with the Space Force super soldiers. But yeah, tell me about this crazy challenge.
Yeah, so Randy Kramer is this guy that said he was also in 20 and back space program activities as a super soldier, and he was a soldier for fighting, and off world. That he was enhanced and that he would get into these space battles and his limbs would get blown off. I asked a lot of people in the series. I think only a couple questions can kind of get heard in the documentary, but I asked people like Jay Weidner, who knew of him and interviewed him with his time at Gaia TV, if Randy Kramer's penis got blown off in any of these altercations, because Randy made a claim that med beds are real. And when we talk about med beds, medical beds, like med beds, in short. And what that is a secret space program technology in which you lie in, and just like the movie Elysium or the movie Prometheus or Star Trek, they have bio beds in that. You lie in it and the bed does its work to repair your whole body. And you can just live flawlessly for the rest of your life because these med beds are just real, right? He said that all these claims, and one of these people that's really spoken out against these secret space program guys is Stephen Cambion. I mean, he does deserve a trophy, a badge of honor for calling bullshit on these people for a long time now. And he was the one that challenged Randy Kramer to a physical fight, a sanctioned sort of legal fight in a ring with boxing gloves and all that jazz. And it never got taken. The offer was rejected by Randy Kramer, as far as I know. But I think the whole point here, just coming back to President Donald Trump, the really Black Mirror-esque reality that we're living right now with social media and this kind of delusional thinking that's being spread in our society in 2026. We show in the documentary that Donald Trump's Truth Social account posted that they were rolling out nationally medbed hospitals. And we show that in the documentary, that in this AI generated video, like it's pretty bad, they show med beds that look like they're pulled out of Star Trek or something. And they say that the people that sign up for these hospitals will get a med bed card and they can heal any ailment and yada. Wow. They have Trump speaking in AI. This is in the Randy Kramer section of the documentary. And Truth Social's admin, whoever's running Trump's account, deleted that, but it was all over Twitter. Like, you know how things get kind of like pulled from other places and then posted. It was shared all over Twitter. It spread like wildfire. And that is scary, that this sort of delusion is being offered to a very large political base. And I'm worried that places like Gaia TV that are launching these delusions are literally brainwashing large segments of the population to believe this stuff. So much so that there's obviously somebody running a major presidential social media account promoting these ideas as true.
It just blows me away. blows me away. I want to talk about the infrastructure. Is there an organized infrastructure behind all of this, or is it more of a kind of self-organizing ecosystem of grifters that sort of just naturally falls into place?
Well, when I spoke to Jay Weidner, the former head of production at Gaia TV, he has a story that he's told multiple people other than me, that before, when he was building the network at Gaia TV, building their productions, when he initially started with Disclosure, Disclosure was the initial series, and then it became Cosmic Disclosure. Before it became Cosmic Disclosure and Corey Goode came along, he said to me that he got a call from essentially somebody from the CIA.
Wow. Okay.
Who didn't, and identified that there's going to be some things that are coming down the road, and he's going to work with somebody that's going to cause a lot of problems for him. And that was Corey Goode. And basically that he had to just be a sword for this movement, and Jay was spooked by that, because he looks back and all the things that were sort of spoken about in that phone call prior to them happening eventually came to reality. So I wonder if, part of all of this sort of entertainment empire and this very circular activity where all these people work together and promote this stuff is somewhat a psyop.
When I'm hearing all of this, when I'm hearing what these folks are saying in the film, I'm like, to me, it totally smacks of bullshit. But then there were a couple of points where you're showing some of these gatherings or seminars or whatnot, and people like standing up in the audience, and they're incredibly grateful for what these folks are doing. Do you think that there is a type of person?
Thank you.
Yes, that one. Yeah, I was like, holy shit. So do you think, is there a type of person or personality who is most vulnerable to this, or does it generally spread across the board?
Or were those people paid to do that?
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
I mean, that's viral marketing, right? You go to, there are some marketing and experience, you would call it experiential marketing campaigns, where people walk through basically demonstrations and acts at a mall setting, right? And I wonder if that experiential marketing is kind of built into some of these presenters' audiences.
Oh,
right?
I believe it.
Like you and I have been to Contact. If you go see a conference, if you go see a speaker there are some moments of adulation where some people go to the mic and say, hey, like Graham Hancock, I really appreciate your work. And before my question, I just want to thank you for all the things you've done before in your work history and the research you've done. That's fine. But I think just like some of this stuff looks too weird, like to me. But that is also me characterizing it, right? My opinion. And I don't think like these people. But you have to realize the other side to the coin there, Matt, is that there is a large audience for this stuff, and that's why you have 600,000 paid subscribers to per year for a network like Gaia TV, because this is the type of content they want. And when those conferences open up, they're there. and they're in the
Right.
audience and they're losing their mind going zany for these claims that are just completely unproven.
Well, I can promise the audience, if I see you in a presentation at whatever convention and I come up to the mic and I thank you for everything you've done, I can promise the audience Darcy hasn't paid me a dime for that. It is definitely genuine. But it makes sense. It almost sort of sounds like what you would see with a professional magic act, where you put these shills in the audience to perform some kind of function. But yeah, that lady, I was like, oh wow, she's something's going on there. I want to talk about Haim Eshed. I'm horrible with these names.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
Haim Eshed.
Haim Eshed. Okay, because this guy is where the film takes a turn that I found really kind of unsettling. And for people who don't know who he is, set up this guy's story for us.
Yeah. It's hard to remember all of his credentials, but essentially he ran the Israelis' Space Force, for lack of a better word, for like almost 20 years.
And that's a fact. That's not like a rumor or anything like that. That's verifiable.
That's a fact.
Okay.
And I was, somebody I spoke to about the sort of secret space program stuff and the claims of a galactic federation, and that being problematic, was Dave Foley, Canadian comedian and actor.
He's been on the show.
Writer.
Yeah, I love him. Yeah.
Great guy, but I'm just saying, I had a personal conversation with him over the phone when I was making this documentary, and I hope he remembers that. But I said, I don't believe this Galactic Federation and sort of secret space program stuff. And he said, well, there is Haim Eshed. And that ends up being the reaction for a lot of these people that believe that there is some kind of proof. They always point to Haim Eshed as being the, pivotal moment of truth in terms of proving that this stuff all exists. And I reached out to Haim Eshed's team. They rejected any comment on that. They don't speak about that anymore, apparently. Okay. And as one might note, especially with the Epstein files being a big problem right now, Mossad might have been connected to Jeffrey Epstein.
Wow. Okay.
And my worry is that Haim Eshed's public proclamation about Trump admitting that there's a galactic federation and, that there's all these aliens out there that we are in league with and have been for a long time. I worry that is a psyop from a foreign intelligence agency. And look, I've said this before. If you look at Donald Trump's proclamations recently in the past 2 years, especially leading up to him becoming elected, he went on Joe Rogan and he said, I've spoken to pilots and credible observers of UAP and UFO activity. And he says, I believe them, but I don't believe that there's aliens or real UFOs. That is his stance. Right. He has never validated that there's a galactic federation of aliens and that there's a secret space program in which we're in league with them, So it's, and then even Richard Dolan gives flavor to that sort of story, right? In the documentary, Dark Alliance, The Next Generation. He basically says, if you start talking about Galactic Federation, you're basically coming from a background that's very woo and there's no proof to it, right? And he worries that maybe Haim Eshed is either being confused because he believes in ufology and he might have access during his space, service for the Israeli space administration, let's say. He might have had access to the truth about UFOs, but he's going 3 or 4 steps beyond that and saying, well, it must be this, right? And now he won't speak about that because either he can't prove it or he's changed his mind about that proclamation, right? So that's pretty much what we present in the documentary about that.
Yeah, that's it's just insane. So, we're living in a moment where the U.S. government has actually held congressional hearings on UAPs. I think we've had 3 of these. You have credible whistleblowers that have testified under oath in front of Congress. How does what you document in this film relate to that more official conversation?
Well, I think it's just saying, like, the conversation is very broad at this point. And people are capitalizing on the idea that new folks are coming to this conversation every day. I think P.T. Barnum said, a sucker is born every minute.
Right.
So when you have an environment where people are caught up in the awe and wonder of UFOs, UAPs, and a possible reality of non-human intelligence that has visited our planet, then they can get taken or swept up in what these other people are saying and what these other entertainers and entertainment networks are promoting. And so I guess, I'm basically just saying, you've got to step back and observe what all that activity is, and then also what all the other activity is in Congress, and sort of say to yourself, what seems more real?
Right. And do you think that the existence of real congressional hearings with real whistleblowers, does that make the grifters more or less powerful?
Makes them more powerful.
Sure.
Because people are then like, wow, who else is a whistleblower? And these guys go, hey, I am. Come listen to me. And
right,
then you're taken down this other path, right? So that is a worry. That is a problem if we're going to continue to keep this conversation legit. How are people vetting their sources? How are people, trying to keep this a serious conversation that can be eventually adopted by mainstream science as a, real topic of discussion in universities and in the mainstream media?
Yeah, because I think that what these folks end up doing really is they poison the well, this grift community. They're actually making it harder for legitimate UFO research and disclosure to happen. And of course, politicians, I would think as well, if they think that you've got all these kooks running around saying these things, and they may be less apt to want to have more hearings. So it seems like it's really doing a disservice for the whole thing. I mean, you would agree with that?
I would say so. Yeah, that could be the net negative effect of some of this discussion that's happening. And also, if you look at what a lot of those thought leaders are doing on social media, they're attacking anybody that comes forward in that sort of mainstream congressional hearing setting. So, you get Sala posting about Lou Elizondo being a disinformation agent and, nothing he's saying is true. Meanwhile, today, I'll read verbatim what Michael Sala posted on his Telegram channel.
Okay.
Trump, the Galactic Federation, and Three Eye Atlas. Is world peace the key to disclosure? Trump is going to, apparently make proclamations that the Galactic Federation is here, and Three Eye Atlas was part of that. So,
of course.
They offer this truth, but then anybody else that's coming forward that might have been from some kind of government official background they're just seeded into the community to spread disinformation, right? And some will prop up others, but for the most part, part of that circular discussion that we were talking about, where they're all supporting each other, a guy like this will look at, well, what is Stephen Greer saying about this? Okay, I'm going to post the same sort of thing. You know what I mean? So they're all part of that sphere, and Stephen Greer is at the very top of the Gaia circus.
He certainly seems to be. And one of the things that I've always noticed about Greer, and I choose not to really talk about him much on the show, is, again, you have this guy who's going out and saying, oh yeah, these things are all here in peace, they're from planet P and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, how do you know all of this? It's like, do you really know all this, or are you just making this stuff up? Now, after 2+ hours of conferences, super soldiers, boxing challenges, and a device with diamonds in it, what do you want people to walk away from this film actually doing differently?
Well, definitely try to remain skeptical of some of these more sensational claims, because unless they can be proven, these super conspiracy types that are already lost in this information, they will say, there's such thing as sheep dipping and removing people's backgrounds and all that. And I agree, that is something that's real. But if somebody is taking advantage of your mind, they're going to use that very real thing, and they're going to use it to their benefit to confuse or take advantage of you.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So here's a question for you. You have interviewed tons of people. Really great interview. I love your interviewing style and the storytelling that you do when you lead an interview. If a genuine alien, not a guy at a conference claiming to channel one, but an actual extraterrestrial, a gray or whatever, showed up and wanted to do an interview on your show, your whatever documentary you're working on, what's the first question you would ask this NHI?
Why are you here?
Yeah. I don't know. I think my question would be, was President Barack Obama on the moon serving on the Space Force? That's what it would. That's what I would probably ask. But anyway, so Darcy, what's next for you? Are you going to dig deeper into this world, or is this particular episode the final chapter with this next generation?
Yeah, so I'm trying to build a story that's kind of within the same vein, and it's based on a murder that has happened. So it's a little bit darker and shows how far these tales can go in a real way. And then I'm working on another story with some scientists that want to sort of propose that maybe there's a different side to this phenomenon that people aren't examining as closely as the extraterrestrial theory. So I'll kind of just say that those are my two major projects for the end of 2026, 2027.
I absolutely love that. And I love your work. And folks, if you have not seen any of Darcy's just wonderful documentaries, you're missing out. Where can people find most of your work, if not all of it? Is it all on one platform like Apple TV, or is it sort of spread out?
It's a little bit spread out, but if people want to see these stories in the Dark Alliance series, they'll see the links in the show description below. And, one part of it is completely free to watch with ads on Tubi TV. The other part is available on Apple TV, and I think eventually it's going to come to Fossum, but I just don't have a link for that yet. Then most of my films, if you just search my name, Darcy Weir, on Tubi TV, Amazon Prime, YouTube movies. There's a bunch of free options on those platforms. And I have a new podcast if people want to just listen to something while they're driving to work or, pumping some heavy iron or something. It's called UFO Review, and I'm just discussing, reviewing previous themes and documentaries that I've made and the people I've spoken to and the story behind making the film. I'm doing something every month. So I'm on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, and all that stuff too.
I absolutely love it. Well, Darcy, hey, if President Trump, with this MMA fight that he's going to hold in front of the White House, if we find out that one of these secret space super soldiers is going to be in the match, let's you and I go to DC. That'd be great,
dude. I'll bet on that guy. He's going to win for sure.
Absolutely. All right, Darcy. Well, thanks for joining us, and looking forward to your next film.
Thank you, and I'll see you at Contact in the Desert.
Folks, that was Darcy Weir. His new film is Dark Alliance, The Next Generation. Links to his film are in the YouTube description. Please check it out. He does really great work. One more note. If anything in this episode brought up difficult feelings, the 988 Lifeline is available 24/7. Just dial 988. Thanks again for tuning in. And if you love our channel, please hit that subscribe button. And I think you'll like this episode coming right up.